Okay, welcome back to Unstoppable Podcast. And first off, I just want to start out by tipping my hat to everybody out there running real good podcasts and who do daily content or even weekly content. Like some people produce such excellent quality out there. I mean, like there's just so many of them. Like it's real work. It's not just screwing around with a bunch of junk because that's what you get. This is what you get. My show is what you get when you're just an idiot screwing around with microphone and free Audacity and things like that. Because every time I go to start up, it's like I have to learn the whole system over again. It seems like it doesn't find my speakers, it doesn't find my microphone. It's like it was never even there. I don't know, whatever. So, point is, everybody out there who runs good content and consistent stuff, like man, kudos to you. And there's guys out there, who aren't like real pros, or at least they didn't start off real pros, but they kept whacking away at it, and they got better and better. But yeah, there's a lot of recognition on my end from everybody out there who's putting out these great podcasts all over YouTube and Spotify and wherever the hell else we find cool podcasts. Also, if you know of any cool podcasts, please feel free to comment them in the comment sections and give them a shout out too, for sure. Recommendations are always appreciated for me, and it's nice to spread the word to each other about our favorite creators and stuff. Because everybody's out here just trying to do something for the betterment of everyone or themselves too, right? I mean, let's go full Ayn Rand and selfish capitalism for the sake of all society and trickle down. I love that term, trickle down economics, because like nobody ever made that economic theory. It was supply side economics, and they kind of went, oh, it trickled down, because they just really wanted to make this mockery of peeing on people, because it was the rich people peeing on everybody, and that was trickled down. So anyhow, that's how I wanted to start off today. But all this new corona information, this is really wild. I saw that YouTube is blocking misinformation. They had been for a while, and what was really interesting was that it's particularly in Australia, they were blocking stuff from like CNN and MSN because they had said that, according to CDC, that people with the vaccine were showing that equal or greater than viral load to unvaccinated people for the Delta variant, which they said, typical fact-checking style, there was some missing context, and that the missing context was that the number of cases in which that had happened was extremely rare, and so while it wasn't necessarily untrue, the context missing said that, it was really nothing to be worried about, which it's a fair criticism. It really is. Now, do I think it should be blocked? No, but I guess it's fair to call out misleading headlines and sensationalism for what it is. It's bullshit. But here in America, that's what we live on. That's what our government runs on. Like, oh, man, Jen Psaki, the freaking Secretary of the White House, talking about how you should be banned on all platforms for misinformation. She's like the fucking commander-in-chief of goddamn misinformation right now. The CDC is too. Like, literally, they were the ones who were saying, oh, well, we have to wear a mask. Oh, Fauci, we got to wear our masks, because we're going to still spread the virus. You know what? Like, a small handful of people might be spreading it while they're vaccinated. Like, that was the whole idea. That was what they're saying. Well, you got to get vaccinated so you don't have to wear a mask. But now you're vaccinated, you have to wear a mask because there's a tiny little portion of people that might be spreading it when they're vaccinated. I mean, like, were we trying to get to, like, zero viral load for all humanity before we take off our masks? Like, because, they're going to start wanting to lock shit down. And that has nothing at all to do with public safety at all, whatsoever. And we saw this during the 2020 lockdowns. It was the largest transfer of wealth, upward transfer of wealth in all of human history. I mean, I think somebody had pointed out that, like, the only time that there was a greater disparity was, like, during ancient Egypt between the pharaohs and the peasants, or whatever they call them, the slaves. But going forward, talking about like vaccine misinformation and that, you had uh, freaking Kamala Harris. It was back in October 2020. She says, "Oh, I won't take Trump's vaccine. Who on God's earth would trust a vaccine approved by the U.S. FDA? How do we get a vaccine distributed after this broken Trumpist nonsense has infected everything?" It's literally the same vaccine now as it was then. Like, the formula didn't fucking change. He doesn't own Pfizer. He doesn't own Moderna. He doesn't own AstraZeneca. I think that's the other one, right? There's plenty of stuff that you can criticize and ask about the vaccine, and I think that's fair, all of them, right? I mean, they're technically emergency use authorization and experimental medications, which means that your life insurance won't cover you if you die from one. So that kind of leaves us back to the whole reason why we have informed consent law. It shouldn't be a mandatory thing at all. And people go, well, we had all the funding in the world and all these trials ran simultaneously by the best, brightest minds all over the earth, side by side. Yeah, parallel trials and an amount of money and man hours doesn't mean anything. Well, I mean, it's not a direct analogy. It's not 100 1-for-1 analogous with over time trial, because the human body develops at a specific rate, and it doesn't give a shit about how many man hours you pour into a dozen of us. Like, right? I could have 30 surgeons working on 3 different parts of my body at the same fucking time. I'm still going to heal at the same rate that I heal. Doesn't matter if I got 30 surgeons doing the work on me. People who don't get that, well, I don't know what to do for people who don't get that, but it seems like more people should be made aware of that little bit of disparity there, or misinformation, miscommunication. I don't know how the hell to phrase it, but this world is really getting weird. Kamal Harris was one, and then Kumo, he was all skeptical about the vaccine under a Trump administration. And you got that Don Winslow guy, who wants to be the first to who wants to be among the first to shoot Trump's rushed vaccination into their child? And that was like September 16th last year. And then, since Ivana Trump is literally the only thing Donald Trump cares about, I think it's American people should demand that Trump shoot her up with the magic vaccine on television first, and then the other 300 million of us will take a look at it. I mean, these people are so incredibly disingenuous, lying pieces of filth. I mean, how does anybody on that side of the aisle just flip? Oh, right. Because we know what it is. It's the TDS. It's the Trump derangement syndrome. And I went to Occupy Democrats today, and man, it was horrifying. Like, literally wishing death on anybody who didn't get the vaccine. Like, these people, they pretend to care about everybody. They're really voting with their hearts, and that love and generosity. Like, all these people would do is weaponize a single-payer healthcare system to kill off their political rivals. Literally, just somebody was actually advocating that they use convention centers and large convention centers to make what do you call it, field hospitals for people who weren't vaccinated. Like, literally, the next thing you know, it's going to be fucking concentration camps. Well, we'll just put all the unvaccinated people in a concentration camp. And I know, like, I'm invoking Godwin's law here, but that's a whole, like, a different healthcare system, a different and less equipped, substandard, subpar, what do you call it? What else? How else can I describe it? Healthcare system for people because of their vaccination status is pretty goddamn dehumanizing. It's like, oh, well, these people made their choice when they chose not to get the vaccine. Well, like, maybe we'll just take people who, have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, people with obesity-related diseases. And how about drugs? If you use drugs, tobacco, alcohol, any sort of illegal street drug, or any sort of other recreational, absolutely non-life medically necessary medication, any complication that arises from that, well, maybe you should get like a tent hospital when you get sick too, because you're just a burden on the taxpayers, right? Like, let's do that, right? At that point, if you don't make enough money that you don't can't afford gold standard health care, and you have to have some sort of government subsidy. Well, let's throw those people in a different standard hospital too. I mean, how does anybody sit there and actually advocate for that? I think these people are just shooting from the hip with the first thing that comes from the top of their head. But I think a lot of them, like, they would just fall in fucking line and go with it. That's what's scary, you know? And it brings me back to that whole point about the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history. These are the same, Occupy Wall Street people, the people who were voting for Bernie before, and that's kind of back to what I'm getting at. They all wanted that single-payer healthcare system, and they're the exact reason why, like, I would never go for it. I listen to Jimmy Dore a lot, and I get where people come from wanting a single-payer healthcare system because, like, it's so incredibly expensive. It's really difficult for everyday people. It's difficult for me to pay, a lot of medical bills. They can bankrupt the best of us, really. The vast majority of us, they can bankrupt, if you can actually declare bankruptcy on most of it anymore. I understand why people would want it, but the problem is that you have all these vindictive, malicious pieces of shit out there who would really want to use it just to punish their political adversaries. This is pretty well documented stuff that happens in other countries too, right? Say other communist and socialist countries like Venezuela and Cuba. If you open your damn mouth against the government, and whoever's in power at that time, it's always the same group in power, right? In those places, you get denied all kinds of stuff. That's what the whole social credit score is all about. Okay, sorry, I had a little lag in my PC there, so I stopped talking for a minute. Maybe I'll go back and edit that out. But, I just got to reading all these threads today, and they were just so incredibly frustrating to read and, like, kind of horrifying to see how low people were willing to stoop over, this choice. Look, if you got the vaccine and you're still worried about, getting infected, wear a mask and social distance. And I know what you're thinking. Well, I took the risk. Oh, you took the risk. Oh, we did the right thing. Oh, you did the right thing. Okay, well, so you did the right thing. Do you trust the science? Well, yeah, but, the vaccine can have breakthrough cases, and I can still get sick, or it's going to evolve because people won't get vaccinated. Guess fucking what? That genie's out of the bottle. It was out because the Delta variant, it emerged in India, right? And then it learned how to evade vaccine immunity in Europe, right? We never from the beginning had the ability, the resources, anything required to vaccinate the whole world in a short period of time. Less than a year, right? So there was always a supply and delivery lag in this entire chain of events. That means that this was inevitable. It was going to happen. And the fact that our vaccinations can't keep up with it means that the vaccine just simply isn't adequate for this strand. And, there's no amount of, trying to reduce it. So this kind of brings to mind, to me, makes me think, well, shit, why couldn't you use, ivermectin? They've had pretty good success with using it as a prophylactic in some studies, except there's one study, it's a really big study, it's like 1,700 people, or maybe it was 1,172 people, that they showed no benefit over the control group. But then you scroll down and you look, and guess what? Guess what all the statements and declarations of conflict of interest are? It's like 30 vaccine manufacturers paid for the whole damn thing. Well, it's not like 30, but there's 30 names on it, and 4 or 5 of them are vaccine manufacturers. So how do you acknowledge that or how do you mitigate for that or adjust for that when you have all these other studies without declarations of conflict of interest that show that it was perfectly fine? And they just make the argument, oh, well, the overall study size was too small. Okay, well, you know what, that's tough. I get it, right? Because that's kind of the whole argument behind why you don't want to, vaccinate everybody, or, some people don't want to get vaccinated because they just don't believe that the data is long term enough to know, and like that makes perfect sense. I went ahead, I got vaccinated, I got the Moderna, I got the double jab. Um, the first time, I had nothing, no reaction at all. Like my arm was a little bit sore for a day, like like getting any other shot, and then the second one, like within 5 minutes, my neck was really stiff, and it felt like like whenever you get like the flu or that, you get like that stiff neck, kind of crummy shoulder feeling, and then that evening I ran a fever. I guess I slept through it mostly, and the next day my neck was still a little bit stiff, and that was the whole experience. And it was that bad. My wife, however, she had a fever on the second one for, good God, a week, and nausea and just general fatigue. And then the general fatigue lasted for about 5 weeks total. She had that and just bouts of nausea constantly. So, and she's always had issues with immune stuff. Long story, won't get into that. But lots of other people have had these problems. So, sorry, I've got a cat over here that's really trying to get over here on top of my laptop. I'm sitting in my living room for a change, not at my table like you saw the last two podcasts, because my house got hit by lightning and my AC's out. So I'm getting that fixed. So I'm running little window units right now. I'm sitting in the living room trying not to melt. And so that's where we're at. So anyhow, I understand why people don't want to get the vaccine, because they hear all these crazy things. A lot of people who are out there just naysaying every little side effect that people have, where they try to shame them, like, oh, you're just being a pussy. Man, shut the fuck up. You have zero business telling other people how to fucking live their lives, especially if you're the party that advocates for completely legalized recreational drugs. I actually I consider myself more libertarian. I like the non-aggression principle, and it's like, hey, you know what? If you want to do a bunch of heroin and die, like, good for fucking you, buddy. Good for you. I don't necessarily want you, driving my bus or operating my airplane, but people gotta live. And when somebody crosses that line, they cause harm to other people. Like, damn it, you should punish them. And there should be some limitations to exactly who we allow to do what. And so, like, drug testing shouldn't be, like, illegal or anything. I think people should be totally free to drug test how they want, when they're paying somebody to do a service for them. It's like, or you're hiring someone. Absolutely, go ahead, carry on with that. I'm not advocating that we abolish that or make it, a problem. But let's also try to have some sort of, what do you call it? Some sort of level of, in between. Let's find some sort of medium there where we're not like overinflating our tax burden with all these incredibly restrictive laws or draconian laws that are creating this huge prison system, right? This predatory legal system, blah, 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 right? I could go on and on and on forever. Anyhow, I really just kind of want to talk today about those tweets and like what I saw about people talking about the damn vaccine and everything else that was going on with that, and the complete hypocrisy from our leaders, which is really what they are, hypocrites. The Ministry of Misinformation is really what the hell we should be calling them. So, I'm out, guys. Y'all be safe. Wash your hands, wipe your face. If you wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to, don't. If you want to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. If you don't, don't. And if you're afraid, wear your mask, get your vaccine, and stay the fuck away. Over and out, y'all.